Okay, this lesson is on what we call function notation, as you see up here. And the focus is going to be on notation. Let's talk about what do we mean by notation. And to start with this, I want to talk about this dude right here. This is Mr. Nick Rivera. He's also a doctor, so they write doctor in front of his name. And that DR is notation. And so we're going to talk about a math type of notation called function notation. Now when you see the DR next to his name, that gives you extra information. That we know he's a doctor, so we know what he does, and he sees patients. So now let's look at a math version of notation. So this is a function. Just like we say DR means doctor, what this means is y is a function of x. That's what that means. And be very clear, this is not y times x. Even though you see the parentheses, this is not multiplication. This is notation. Just like DR is notation. DR is not his first name. DR is just notation for who he is. And just like here, the parentheses is not times. It's just a type of notation. And just like the DR stands for doctor and it tells you extra information, what happens here is the parentheses show us what we're going to plug in. And what we're plugging in is a number. So instead of x, it becomes a number. And that's what function notation does, is it shows you what you're going to plug in. Just like the DR tells you more information about the person. So before, you would have a function, and in this case it's $10 per hour, and then you would plug in 5 hours for x. And you'd find y, and you write an ordered pair. But now we have that extra information. We're not going to have just a y, so we're going to use italics to show the notation, and we see that that is equal to 10x, just like it was before. And now you can plug in the 5 and you see then that this is times, and again this will be in italics, and there's your answer. And you can write that as an ordered pair just like we did before. So the new part for all of this is that we have the notation here that tells us this is not just a y, but we can still get the same answer. It just gives us extra information. And so now you have two types of problems. First problem, they give you the x, and you plug that in. And so you see what that looks like down here. We plug in a 5 for the x, and so now you get 10 times that 5, because that's what we're plugging in. just like we saw before. And then you can also have the other situation where they tell you the y, and then you have to find the x. So they're giving you the y here, and then what we want to do is figure out what the x is. And so what we do in this situation is we write out the equation. Notice here, we still don't know what x is. And now we can solve, and we can figure out the x. And so we were looking for the x, and now we found x. And so why don't you hit pause and try these two problems on your own, and then hit play, and you can see the solutions. So notice they give you the x, so you plug that in for x. But in this other situation, you don't know the x, they give you the y. And so you just write the whole equation. We don't always have to use f and x. You can also use other letters. So instead of y equals the pay and x equals the hours, we're going to use p and h. But everything else is exactly the same. So in this case, they're telling you the h, which is the hours, which is like them telling you what x is. And in this other case, they tell you the y, the p, and then you have to figure out the h, just like we did before. So let's take a look and see how this works. So in this case, with the C of 3, they're giving you the number of toppings. And then you write the expression, but instead of n, we're writing 3. And then you multiply and add, and you get 16. In this other situation, they're giving you the C, and you have to figure out the n. So we write the expression again. But this time we know the whole thing equals 18. And then we solve. And now we know what n is. So we have the same situation that we had before, except now it's in a graph form. We see here in the first problem, they give us the x, or in this case, it's the h. So we come over here and find the 4 on the graph. Instead of plugging it in, we're not going to plug it in this time. We're going to go up to our line and find the point right there. And then we can go over to the x-axis, which in this case it's the p-axis, and we can find our number. We do the same thing for this next problem. They give us the 2. We're going to go up to our line and find the point, and then we're going to go over and find the y, or the p in this problem. So they gave us, in this case, they give you the x, and then you have to go find the y. In this case, though, they give you the h, and then you have to go find the p. In this situation, they give you the P, so you have to go over to the P axis, and we're going to go straight across to our line, find our point, and then we can go find the H that goes with it, and we see that that's 4. And we do the same thing with the next problem. We see that they give us that P is 10, so we find that. We go over, find the point, and then go down to find the H, and that is 1. So in this case, they gave you the y-axis, the P, and then you had to go find the X, or in this case, the H. So here's some practice problems. So why don't you try these? Remember to find your number, go up to the line, and then go over to find the other number. Hit pause, try the problems, and then you can hit play to see the solutions or the answers. Okay, in this case, they gave you the X values, the N's, and then you had to go find the C values that go with it. In this case, they gave you the C values, and you had to go find the N values. You went backwards. And that is function notation.